Welcome, everybody, to this episode of Big Mistakes in Real Estate. I am the host of the show, Isaac Ocean, and again, we are bringing the heat with Michael Hellickson. This guy is incredible. We're going to be getting to one of the biggest mistakes in real estate anyone has ever made right after this.
Everyone makes mistakes, but these mistakes can cost you thousands in commission.
Are you a real estate agent? Then listen up and learn from the Big Mistakes in Real Estate podcast with your host, Isaac Ocean.
Hey guys, welcome back to the show. And again, I told you I was bringing the heat, and I am not lying. We are coming in here with Michael Hellickson. Michael Hellickson, let me give you a backstory in case you haven't heard. And if you have heard, just listen up because it's still good. So Michael Hellickson had started over 20 years in the business, selling over 100 homes a month and carrying over 750 active and pending listings at one point. He began his real estate career back in 1991, and he was among the top 1% of all the agents nationally before he even graduated high school. Not to mention, his team was literally number one. Like, there's not a number that's better than that. Number one out of over 1 million real estate teams. Michael Hellickson, thank you so much for coming on the show. It means the world.
I appreciate you having me. It's nice of you to ask me to do this.
All right, thank you very much. So we're pretty big about making sure that you get what you want from this. So what are you here today to talk about with Club Wealth?
So, well, if I could accomplish one thing, if to quote Napoleon Hill, you got to begin with the end in mind, right? So if I could accomplish one thing today, it would be to help other agents avoid mistakes and have a better career and a more balanced life. So, and it really starts with knowing not only what to do, but also what not to do. So oftentimes what not to do is more important than what to do.
Very true. And Michael, where can you be found? Clubwealth.com, anywhere else?
Yeah, clubwealth.com. Just that's actually a great place to go. If you for those that are on Facebook, check us out. Go to our Facebook group. It's facebook.com/groups/clubwealth. And there's about 34,000 people in there, so it's a good group to belong to. A lot of smart agents in there.
And I looked, you have a ton of free content to help out real estate agents without paying a dime.
We do. And some of the coaches out there have given us a bit of a hard time about that. But yeah, we do. We put a ton of stuff out there for free. I mean, the reality is the information's out there, right? There's tons of information out there. And we just want to make sure that people are getting great information. We want to make sure they're getting stuff that really works. So when we do stuff, it's not a teaser. It's not a, oh, hey, we're going to tell you part of it, but to really get the good stuff, you got to pay money. Like, we're not going to do that. So what we do is if you go to clubwealth.com/blog, that's our blog. And in our blog, there's things like, for example, there's a blog in there on leads where we give 31 of our best 109 lead sources out. And there's an hour-long video walking you through why you should use which lead sources and all that kind of stuff. So it's pretty solid.
There's multiple videos, and the man's not exaggerating. There are more than one video that's over an hour. I did my research.
Yeah, there's a bunch.
So that's Michael. You guys know where to find him. Club Wealth is about finding real estate coaches. Is that right?
Yeah, so Club Wealth is essentially, we are a coaching organization. There's lots of great coaching organizations out there that most people have heard of. Ours is a little bit different. Some big ones you've probably heard of, their typical client will do about 20 transactions a year. For us, our typical client will do about 200 transactions a year. And we do have coaching for entry-level agents also, people who are brand new in the business, all the way on up to the top agents in the country. Got about 71 coaches at Club Wealth, all of whom sell actually real estate still today, and they actually sell more real estate than the people they coach. So if you're doing 10 deals a year, your coach does 50 deals a year. If you're doing 100, your coach does 200, and so forth. We literally have coaches that do over 3,000 transactions a year. So,
that's kind of interesting that you bring up that your coaches do real estate. I want to dive into that just for one quick second.
Yeah.
Wait, what coaches don't do real estate? Because that seems like, why would you have a coach that doesn't do real estate? I don't.
Virtually all of the other coaching companies on the planet, their coaches don't sell real estate actively. Yeah, and don't get me wrong, there's a few that do, but they don't have a requirement that their coaches outproduce the people they coach. So you might have somebody that does 4 or 5 transactions a year, but they're really a coach, right? So they spend most of their time coaching, and they're trying to tell you how to do 200 transactions a year. See, for us, one of our core values is if you want to climb to the top of Mount Everest, you need a guide who's actually been to the top of Mount Everest before. So why would I take advice from someone who's never done, 100 homes a year or 500 homes a year, whatever my goal is? Why would I take advice from someone who's never done that when I can take advice from someone who not only did that, but is doing it every year? It makes no sense.
I don't understand you at all. My dietitian personally weighs 400 pounds and gives great
advice. That's exactly my point, right? Like if you want to learn how to be healthy, don't take advice from me. I'm not the health and wellness guy. I'm the freaking crush it in real estate and have a great life guy. It's anyway. So yes, for us is very, very important. In fact, imperative that the coaches coach, and so that applies both to the agent side, so agent-based coaching, and we also have a broker owner coaching program for people that own brokerages. So if you've got a brokerage with 300 agents in it, your coach will have 600 agents. If you have a brokerage with 600 agents, your coach has 1,000 agents. So
I feel bad for the guy at the very top. You're like, Michael, what do you have for him? You're like, nobody. You're too good. I'm sorry.
No, for that guy, we say, all right, so I'm going to coach you directly myself, and you're going to be one of our coaches. You're going to help us help other people get to your level. So, it's such a great program. It really is. I mean, there's just good people, right? These are the kind of people you want kids around. These are the kind of people that truly care more about you and every interaction you have with them, you really feel like all they care about in that moment is what's best for you. And they don't have an agenda. They're not trying to sell you something else. They're not trying to upsell you into the next product or service or whatever. It's just, how do we help you get to that next level? And here's the other piece of it, and this is really important. Our core value, our number one core value in Club Wealth is that no success in the world can compensate for failure in the home. So the key here is, look, we'll teach you how to make millions of dollars, but by golly, we're not going to do it at the expense of your family. You got to take care of your family. And actually, there's 5 key areas in your life you got to cultivate, right? Family, business, financial, health, both physical and mental, and your spiritual. And if any one of those is out of whack, the rest of them suck, right? The rest of them suffer. So anyway.
That's exactly
super important to have that balance.
Oh, I love your coaching structure, because honestly, the other coaching that I have seen, it's coaches that just coach and they don't really do real estate. And I never understood that. So that's a legit good point. And if you're looking for a coach, reach out, clubwealth.com, reach out to Michael, tell him you found it on our podcast, and rock and roll, man. More power to you. Get to the top of the mountain. Like you said, you need a guide. How are you going to get there? So we're pretty big on content, and I have a feeling this podcast is going to be so good. So I'm going to ask you, Michael, what was your big mistake in real estate?
So I learned a moment too late that you can be right or you can be rich, but you can't be both. You got to pick one, right? So in 2007, I'll just tell you the story. So in 2007, our team was doing between about 400 and 500 transactions a year. We were the number one team in Washington State. We weren't number one in the country yet. We're close, but we're number one in Washington State. And back then, 400 or 500 transactions a year was a lot. Now there's a lot of people that are doing that now, but back then there weren't very many. And excuse me, we did about 50% of our business was retail, and about 50% of our business was REO. And so I was one day down in Texas visiting a lot of our bank clients, Fannie Mae, Nation Star, but a bunch of clients that we worked with in the bank world. And the state of Washington Department of Licensing came knocking on my door. Hey, we want to see all your files. Okay, so it's normally not a big deal, right? Like they do these audits on. We've been through them before. It's not an issue. What they're looking for is trust fund violations. But in our state, you have a choice. You can either have a trust fund, or you can just have the clients write the earnest money check to escrow, to the escrow company, so that you never touch the money. That's the safest thing to do, and that's what we always did. So we never had any problems, right? And we've been through these audits before. It was always clean. And in fact, they would get done with the audits and they would say, "Man, you should teach classes on this. Your stuff is so clean." And we'd have a good laugh, because I'd be like, "I do." So, but anyway, long story short, when they came knocking on my door, I was out of town, and I'm like, man, I really don't want them going through my stuff when I'm out of town. So I called my attorney up and I said, hey, Doug, could you go do this audit for me? And Doug's the guy that wrote the law of real estate agency for Washington State. I mean, this guy, he's the big deal in Washington. He's the attorney for real estate in Washington. And he says, well, I can't do that for you right now because I'm in court for another client, but just tell them to go away. I've had this conversation with them before. It's an illegal search and seizure. They know it. They know they're not supposed to do it. Just tell them to go away. I'm thinking to myself, are you kidding me? Like, this is the state. You can't just tell the state to go away. He's like, no. Just seriously, just tell them to go away. Like, all right, well, you're the attorney. I'll just trust you. So I called my assistant back and I said, hey, tell him to come back in 2 weeks when I'm back in town, and we'll do the audit then. No big deal. And so she did. And apparently they didn't like that answer because they came back the next day with a subpoena saying, oh, yeah, we're going to look at all your files. And so I'm freaking out at this point. I'm like, what is going on here? So I called Doug up and I said, hey, man, like, they just came back with a subpoena. What do I do now? He says, just authorize me $1,500. I'll go take care of it. Okay. I had no idea what that meant at the time, but I said, fine, go do what you got to do. Because I wasn't even going to be back for another couple of weeks. So he takes them to court the next day. Now, I thought he was just going to take care of what I needed done, but apparently he was fighting the battle for the entire industry on my paycheck. So he goes to court, and not only does he beat them, he gets a court order, a restraining order that says that not only can they never audit me again, that they can never audit any other broker or agent in the state ever again. Right? So,
the money.
dude, if he would have just left it at me, this would have died there, right? It wouldn't have been a big deal. But he wrapped in every agent in the state, and he basically backed them into a corner and put them in a position of they have to come out fighting, which is exactly what they did. And so that following week, they hired a full-time private investigator who spent the next 17 and a half months contacting every agent, every client, buyer, seller, escrow company, lender, everybody that had ever been involved in a transaction that we'd done that they could find. And what they would do is they would write a complaint on state letterhead, send it to the person, and ask them to sign it. We're talking thousands of people they contacted. Thousands. Out of the thousands of people, they got 23 complaints back. Now, let me tell you about the 23 complaints. 19 of them were from real estate agents in the same office. And the reason why was because the broker in that office and I did not get along. And he basically told all his agents, he says, you either sign this complaint or go find another office. And I didn't know that at the time, but what's interesting is one of the agents in his company was so upset by this, she called me up. And after a few conversations, guess what ended up happening? She ended up joining our team. So anyway, long story short, those 19 complaints were completely bogus. Then the 4 complaints that were from actual consumers were all short sale sellers, every single one of them. They were a short sale seller, and they all had the same complaint. And the complaint was that I didn't get their deficiency waived. And for anyone who's ever done a short sale before, you know that I don't have control. The agent does not have any control over whether or not the bank waives the right to receive a deficiency or to seek a deficiency. And so literally none of those complaints had any merit. So the state literally writes us a letter back after, again, 17 and a half months of this, and it was all done in secret. I didn't know about any of it until this particular agent came over to our team. And they send us a letter saying, yeah, we did this investigation for the last 17 and a half months, and looks like we don't have anything. Looks like you're doing what you're supposed to be doing, so we're dropping it. Okay. Like, big deal, right? So we think it's over with, and it is over with, essentially. And if we would have let it die there, that would have been the end of it. Fast forward to 2010.
Here comes the big mistake in real estate.
Oh, this is it right here. This is the crazy part. Now, again, if I had just let sleeping dogs laugh, I'd have left it alone. This never would have been an issue. But in 2010, we had moved our office, and every time you move your office, it triggers these random audits that we have a court order saying they're not supposed to be doing anymore, right? But they never stopped the practice. They continued to do the audits, even though it was against the law and they had a court order saying they weren't allowed to do it. They never stopped doing them. So when we moved our office, it triggered one of these random audits. So they show up at our new office wanting to look at all our files. And I'm thinking to myself, I thought we got a court order 3 years ago saying that they're not supposed to do this. And so I called Doug up and he says, yeah, well, you have a court order. And what's worse is now you have to take them to court to enforce the court order. If you don't, you're what's called complicit and the court order goes away. Like, are you freaking kidding me? Like, they're breaking the law and I got to pay for it? Like, I got to pay to make the state follow the law in their state? This makes no sense to me. So anyway, I said, okay, what do we got to do? He says, of course, authorize me $1,500 again. Like, see, it's always $1,500, right? But then it always adds up. It's always a lot more than that. Anytime an attorney says, just authorize me $1,500, that's just getting your feet wet, folks. Trust me. All right. So he authorized me. I said, okay, fine, whatever. So he takes him to court the next day. He files the lawsuit the next day to take him to court to enforce the court order. Well, in the process of filing a lawsuit, what happens is attorneys have to work out with the court the date for the hearing, right? So as they're doing this, you have to tell them when you're going to be out of town. The attorneys tell each other when they're going to be out of town. The court tells you when they have available, blah, 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 and they work it out. Well, they knew that over Labor Day weekend, I was going to be in Hawaii for a couple of weeks, and they knew that over Labor Day weekend, that same weekend, my attorney was going to be out of town in California visiting some friends and family down there. And so guess what they did?
Hold a Michael Hellickson.
Dude, let me tell you, these guys, it was crazy. So literally, no warning, no, hey, we think you're doing this, this, or this wrong, no due process, no hearing, no nothing. At 5 o'clock on the Friday of Labor Day weekend, they hit send on an email suspending my real estate license, and they copied the MLS and told them to cancel my 750 listings. Right?
What? How much did you lose in that moment? Did you calculate it?
Well, it depends on how you want to look at it. I mean, you can calculate it out into the lifetime value of that career, and you can, but in that moment, I had $4.5 million in pending commissions in that moment.
I would say that's one of the biggest mistakes in real estate you can possibly, but I know that you're not done. So keep going.
It gets worse. Oh yeah, no, it gets worse. So $4.5 million in instant loss. We had 44 team members. 12 people lost their homes to foreclosure during this process because we represented them, and we weren't even allowed to contact our clients because now I don't have a real estate license, right? So if I contact them, I would be practicing real estate without a license, and that's an actual violation of the law. We've never broken the law. We are never going to go close to breaking the law, and they knew it, and that's why they did it this way. Because they knew that we weren't doing anything wrong and they didn't have anything, but they needed to take the heat off of themselves. Well, long story, it took us 30 days to get them in front of a judge. And we've tried hard to get them in front of a judge as quickly as we could, obviously, because I need to get my business back up and running. So we get them in front of a judge 30 days later. Let me tell you, the judge flipped out. I mean, he lost it. So on them, not on me, on them. So basically, what he said was, he said, look, you guys have violated Michael's civil rights in 3 different ways. There was no due process. There was the illegal search and seizure. And then your real estate license and your brokerage license is actually a property right. So it's an illegal taking of a property. So yeah, it's not like a barber that, if you take their license, they just go open up shop next door and away they go. It's like an attorney or, that goes and they get a bar license. That's a property. You own that. And it's a big deal. You can't just take that away from somebody. So they had violated our rights in 3 different ways. Long story short, he not only made them give our licenses back, he ruled that they were grossly negligent in taking them to begin with. Now, gross negligence is a pretty high legal standard. It's a pretty big deal. So they were grossly negligent. So guess how much money they had to pay us in recourses, or my English is failing me. I can't think of the right word, but guess how much we got from them out of this to compensate us for this loss?
Double.
0. Not $1, right? Even though they were grossly negligent. Now here's the lesson you got to learn out of this. The problem is that because they're a state entity, they and their employees have express and implied immunity. So literally, they can break the law all they want, and you can't do a thing about it.
Wow, this is like the real estate police. Like, we're just going to do whatever we want, and what are you going to do, arrest me? We are the police.
That's basically it. I mean, it was scary to see what happened there. So then it gets worse. So now we've got our licenses back. And so we get back at it. And oh, by the way, during that process, during that 30 days, remember, some of my clients were the most prestigious banks in the country, right? Bank of America, Fannie Mae, right? I had the government as one of my clients, like the biggest government entity, and the biggest GSE on the planet is one of my clients. And they generally had about 125 listings with me. I was the #1 agent in the country that they worked with. And so they're freaking out, right? As soon as this happened, of course they're concerned, right? And they want to know what's going on. So they each, Bank of America and Fannie Mae, both launched their own investigation to find out what really happened. Did Michael really do something wrong, or is he doing what he's supposed to do? And I'd want to know too if I was them. So Bank of America came back and they said, hey man, we actually really like what you're doing. It looks like you're doing a good job. So tell you what we're going to do. We're going to give you 60 listings to get you back on your feet again. Cool. Right on. All right. So then,
the nicest thing Bank of America has ever done for anyone. Side note.
It was great. Oh my gosh, it was fantastic. I couldn't even begin to tell you. And what it did was, and more than the listings, what it really did was it validated that a very intelligent third party went deep on this, really analyzed it, and came out of it feeling like, yeah, you guys are really doing what you should be doing. In fact, we think other people should do it that way too. So Fannie Mae came back and they said basically that. They said, look, not only do we think you did everything right, but we really like what you're doing. So tell you what, not only are we going to give you 125 listings right now, we want you to get back on the road, and we want you to go start teaching our agents all over the country how to do what you do.
Wow.
Right? So in about 90 days, we got back up to 227 listings in 90 days, and I didn't take a single retail listing during that time because I didn't want to put anybody at risk.
Just a little bit. So you lost 700 and some odd listings?
750.
One day. 750, and then a couple weeks, months later, you're walking into over 200?
90 days, 227.
227?
Mm-hmm.
You want to
and we didn't do a lick of retail during that time.
Really nice. I'm sure yours is too. We'll just switch places. I would love to be in your skin to hear that call when a bank says that many REO. Like, you're the first person at this level that I've ever talked to, and I'll be completely honest. I make no bones about it. I'm not where you are, but I will be. So, tell me what that feeling is like. Like, I know this is big mistakes in real estate, but I'm a fanboy over here. Like, when you get that call and you're in that situation, you're down in the dumps, and like literally, like manna from heaven.
Mm-hmm. It felt great, obviously, but I'll be honest with you. As great as it felt, it didn't change the fact that I had to lay off most of my 44-person team. It didn't change the fact that 12 people's homes went to foreclosure during the time because of what the state did. It didn't change the fact that an awful lot of people got hurt in that process. And so as great as it was very bittersweet because yes, it allowed us to get back at it. Yes, it allowed us to start rebuilding our team and putting people back to work and getting back out there to help people. But man, damage had been done that was irreparable to a lot of people. And anyway, so and that you just there's no compensating for that. So then they decided, as they saw us, coming back, and they see that things are back on track. They decide, well, hey, we need to send a message here. We need to tell all the agents in Washington that, you don't come after us. We go after you. And so they had this massive black eye now. And so now they start making stuff up. Now they're going to find ways to just make stuff up as they go, just to get us into court. And their goal was not to beat us. Now they'll tell you that their goal is to beat us, but they knew they couldn't. And they knew that they were the ones breaking the law. But their goal was, how do we get him out of business? In fact, one of the people at the state was quoted as saying, we're going to make sure Michael never practices real estate in Washington State ever again. That was their goal. Their goal was not to find out the truth. Their goal was not to obey the law. Their goal was not to follow the law in any way. All they cared about was getting me out of business. And if you saw the court records, it would floor you. I mean, we have them on record saying, yeah, we know we're breaking the law. Yeah. we're seeking legislation to get it changed, but we're going to keep breaking the law in the meantime, and we don't care. It literally, they said that under oath. It's crazy. So that said, fast forward, they decide that they're going to take us to court again. And so now instead of me coming after them, now they're coming after me finally on their part. And so now I've got to fight them.
Second. So you're thinking in your mind right now, I'm assuming, you're thinking that this is America. Like, these people have my back. There are laws. I follow the law. If you go past the speed, the cops pull you over. If a politician does something wrong, they should also face the punishment of the laws they wrote. That's right. I'm assuming what you feel like. You feel like a red-blooded American, and you're happy that this is going to be taken care of because, damn it, that's what happens. And that's what happened, right?
It's what should happen, but it's not what happened. And here's the reality. The reason is, and look, I love America. Don't get me wrong. Like I'm a patriot through and through. There's no question. I love our country. It provides us. It provides all of us with opportunities that you don't get anywhere else, and safety that you don't get anywhere else, and the right to freedom and the right to just all kinds of things that you don't get anywhere else. So you're not going to hear me talk bad about America. I love America. That being said,
things are going to be taken care of because that's the way we were raised. Like, you follow the law, you do the right things, and good things happen to you. That's not really what happened in this situation, and that's
well, the reality is that the system is only good as the people running it. And so in this scenario, you've got people running it that not only have never sold real estate, that have never sat face to face with a consumer to really understand what they're going through, and really, as an example, we did a lot of short sales. They've never sat across from someone who's losing their home and really understood what that's like, and really understood what it takes to help that person out of that situation. They've never had to do that. Anyway, that being said, as they started coming after me, and it boiled down to one person at the Department of Licensing that really had it out for us, and that person just wouldn't let it go. That said, I spent $356,000 fighting them. And I beat them every single time we went in front of an actual judge, every time. And I got to the point where after $356,000, I looked at my wife and I said, you know what? I said, I don't think they care if they beat us. I think that their plan is run us out of money. And they have the bandwidth to do it. And they'll just keep throwing money at it until we go away. That, or I'm going to have a heart attack. And I'm not doing that. I'm not, and I'm telling you, it's stressful. You want to talk about stressed out? It is. Nobody wins in this stuff. It's stressful. Don't get under the attorneys. And so, with her permission, I sold the company. The point where it's like, you win, I'm out, tap out. So I sold the company. I took 3.5 years off, and that was pretty cool. I thought I was going to retire, but I'm not a retirement kind of guy. I really like what I do, and I want to be productive, and I love to help people. And it took me 3.5 years to figure out what I was put on the planet to do. But once I figured it out, I got to focus on that, and that's what I do now, and I love it. And I wouldn't trade it for the world. So
that is incredible. Is there any more that we're missing to the story? So did your license get pulled and you lost everything and then you sold it? No, your license never got pulled. You just sold the company.
No. It got pulled and then they had to give it back. Yeah, it got back when they did that email, right? That with no hearing, no nothing, right? And then they sent us through. It gets a little. If you want, I can go into more detail. They would send us through their administrative, which means now they're going to have a state employee. So somebody that works for the person that's suing me is now going to act as the judge, which is right. Dude, it's a complete joke. And so it's terrible. I mean, literally, like the way that they can trample on your rights is crazy. And just they literally trample all over the Constitution. But anyway, that being said, let's through that process. And that got it's because the court reporter, when we got done with that process, the court reporter in the hearing leans over to my attorney. I'm not supposed to say this because I'm supposed to be neutral. But they got nothing. Like I can't believe they've done this. I've never seen them cut and dried case. They win this. Well, of course, this judge. He's not an elected judge. Again, this is not a real judge. He's a state employee. Comes back and says, "Yep, I'm gonna agree with my boss. I'm gonna rule in favor of my boss, and take your license again." And so that happened. And so my attorney and I, we just looked. This is crazy. This is absolute insanity. And so he asked, "What's the next step?" And he says, "Well, the next step is we're going to go to an actual judge at the Court of Appeals." He says it usually takes about 2 months for them to come back and let us know if they're going to hear your case or not. And I'm thinking to myself, "Wow, that's crazy." But because they have to review the case, and what they have, and in order to hear your case, they don't look at it solely on the merits of the case. What they're looking for, did they follow the rule of law in how they adjudicated the case? And he said, so more often than not, the Court of Appeals won't hear your case. He says if they do, it's a pretty big deal, and it'll usually take about 2 months to do that. Not 2 weeks went by, and the Court of Appeals came back and said, "Yeah, we're taking the case. Absolutely." Oh yeah, no question. I mean, it was like crazy. So at that moment was when I had the defining moment. So I asked my attorney, I said, "Doug, what's this really going to cost me? How much more do I have to throw at this? I'm just worn out. I mean, at this point, I'm ready to tap out."
Can I answer this for you? I got it. It's $1,500. Just authorize it.
Hey, that's what I was expecting. That's what I thought was going to happen. But no. This is what really freaked me out. He says, "Oh, it probably won't be more than 20 grand or so." Listen, your attorney says probably not more than 20 grand or so. It's 100 minimum. You're stroking $100,000 check right now. I mean, there's no question. And I looked at Tara and I'm like, look, we can keep doing this, and we'll keep beating them, and we'll keep winning every time we go in front of the real judge. They will keep putting us through this bogus administrative process as many times as they can to drown us in financial burden. And I said, I can't do it. I can't keep doing this. It's not worth it. We got 7 figures in the bank. Go and let's go do something else, or do what we, spend some time with the kids and sell the business. And that's what we did. And it might sound like I was bitter at that point, but I really wasn't. I mean, at some point, you got to decide that quality of life is more important, right? So.
That's exactly right. And guys, we're going to go to the commercial, but right after this, he doesn't know it yet, but I'm going to ask him how much he sold his company for and see if he answers it right after this commercial.
Are you learning? Good, because that's the point. But do me a favor. Subscribe if you have not already. And if you're feeling really frisky, give me a review on your favorite podcast player. Now back to the show.
So, as this is recorded live, so he knows I'm going to ask him. So, will you answer the question? How much did you sell it for? Because everybody wants to know.
Not enough. And I'll tell you why. Because at the time I was more concerned about getting my clients taken care of than I was about making money on the sale. And at this point, and when I say my clients, remember for that last 6 months, I didn't do any retail work. All I did that 6 months was with the banks. But they reported me, and I want to make sure because they stood by me. I wanted to make sure that I didn't put them in a difficult position. I want to make sure that for the rest of my career, for the rest of my life, I'd always have friends there. I'd always be able to go back there because who knows what's going to happen down the road. You never know where life leads you. I didn't want to burn the bridges, and there was no amount of money that would be worth making it challenging for them. So I just wanted to make sure that I got it to the right person. So I didn't go look for an agent, an outside agent that would come in and buy it or anything like that. I sold it to someone that was on the team that I knew REO process inside and out, and they took very good care of the banks for me. And that's all I cared about. And she did. She did a great job. So.
I was a actor and a bunch of other stuff, but I have a very good sense for who a human being is just by spending just a little bit of time. And literally, I am ready to list my house with this man. I'm not even kidding. You can see it in his eyes. Like, guys, check him out at clubwealth.com because the guy's not lying about any of this stuff. This isn't exaggerated. This isn't fabricated. This is what happened. This is the real stuff. This is the top of the mountain. He has been there. He's trying to give you a map. Go get your feet wet on YouTube. Check him out. See what videos he has and see what value he can bring to you and your career because this guy's dropping bombs over here.
That's nice. Yeah, I appreciate that. It really is. Here's the thing. There's a lot of good people out there, and I'll be honest. Even, and this is going to sound crazy, and I can't even believe these words are going to come out of my mouth. It's true. Even the person at the state who wouldn't let this go, and even the other people in the state that just wouldn't follow the law, I'm sure that somewhere deep down they believed they were doing the right thing. I'm sure that somewhere they were of the belief, and they had convinced themselves they were doing right by the public. And so I don't want people to think that. Let's back up. Is it frustrating for me? Yes, but I don't want people to think that I haven't forgiven them. Right? I mean, at the end of the day, we all make mistakes. These were some big mistakes. I'm glad it happened to me and not somebody else. Because for people, it would have been devastating. Some people committed suicide over it. I mean, this could have ended very differently if it had happened to some other people. And so I'm glad that I went on through it, because now, not only did it, and here's the real blessing out of the thing, right? Not only did it force me to take a harder look at my life, because I'll tell you what, the money was so good, I was working 12 days a month. I was making ridiculous money. My business was on autopilot. The following year, we closed over 3,000 transactions. The following year, we were on, I mean, literally, like this. There's no way I wouldn't still be selling real estate. And here's the problem with that. I wouldn't be coaching today if I hadn't gone through that, and I wouldn't be able to help other people that are going through similar things. I have a client right now who made a mistake, an honest mistake, and they're paying the price for it now. And they're scared that they're not going to get to sell real estate anymore. And how could I help that person if I hadn't been through this before? If I hadn't gone through something like this? How would I help them, really? How would I be able to really empathize with them and help them through this process if I hadn't gone through that? So I say this, I don't want you guys to think I'm Mr. Altruistic, because let me tell you something, it sucks that I had to go through it. But if you have the right attitude about this kind of stuff, it doesn't have to be the end. It doesn't have to cripple you. It doesn't have to be a stopping point in your career. It can, in fact, be something you build on and that can propel you forward. It's like they say, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. And so, anyway, I really do believe God had a hand in this. I really do believe that God made this happen because he knew that there's no way I would have opened Club Well. There's no way we would have done with it what we have done if I was still selling real estate.
So I have a question for you, because that was an action-packed story. Talk to somebody in the audience who sees the state doing something illegal, or they want to report somebody, or they want to report another realtor, or they want to report somebody in the state, or they want to see something going wrong. What would you suggest to that real estate agent?
I would never, ever, ever do that unless a couple of things happen first. Number one, I would do everything I could to reach out to that person personally and work it out with them one-on-one first if there's a challenge. Number two, if that didn't work, I'd get my broker and their broker involved, and I'd try and work it out long before we would ever file a complaint of any kind. Now, if this was one that was harming consumers, harming agents, and was never going to stop, then maybe. I would never, ever, ever go after someone for personal gain. If you're going to go after them, a good friend of mine who's one of my attorneys, is an intellectual property attorney, told me one day, he says, Michael, the best advice he ever got from a fellow attorney years and years prior was that you never go after somebody for your own benefit. You go after somebody if it's to prevent them from hurting someone else. And that's great advice. So I'd be really careful about that. And think about this: if you spread a bunch of poison out there, guess what? That stuff has to find its way back. But the opposite is also true. If you give it out in slices, it comes back in loaves. So
it does. You can't keep it. You've got to give it away. So
that's right.
Is there anything else that you want to add to the audience for them to take away?
So the last thing I would want to share is this. Everything that you want, anything that you currently have, starts in one place, and it's up here. It starts with your mindset. And for the best, right? Whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right. So you've got to choose what you want. You got to who you're going to be, and it doesn't who you were yesterday. It doesn't what you did yesterday or what you didn't do yesterday. You can choose today to be different. You can choose today to be better. You can choose whether or not you learn from that or you suffer from what you've gone through. So make the choice to learn from it, grow from it, and move forward, and then help others do the same. And life will work out just as it should, and you'll be very, very happy.
It's kind of amazing the way that it works out if you follow that very, very simple advice. Okay, again, this is Michael Hellickson. He can be reached over at www.clubwealth.com/leads. And on, like right after this.
On the next episode of Big Mistakes in Real Estate.
On the next episode, we are going to be going over how to streamline your business with some checklists. And actually, I'm just going to assume that Michael has a checklist for me, and we're going to throw one of his checklists in there too, because the man is a master, and I am going to personally take some of his stuff and put it and implement it into my personal business, because I don't know everything, and I want to follow the man to the top of the mountain. And that mountain's full of money, and more important, it's filled with family, it's filled with friends, and it's filled with an amazing life. And that's what you've lived, my friend, and it has been an absolute pleasure having you on the show. And we know where to reach Michael. Make sure you reach out to him. Check out some of his YouTube videos. Check out www.clubwealth.com/leads. Check that in the show notes on YouTube, or you can find me on iTunes, Spotify, or anywhere you find your podcasts. Guys, we come out with new episodes every Monday at 4 o'clock. Don't forget to subscribe, and I'll check you out later.